Welcome back to another episode of the Cardboard Herald, my chance to talk with creative gamers and game creators. As always, I'm your host, Jack, and today I am joined by Khiara Foss of Enigma Emporium. Welcome to the show, Khiara.
Hey there, Jack. How's your evening going?
It is going well, but I think it's going better for you because you are currently sitting on top of a just about funded Kickstarter. How's that going?
It's going pretty well. We launched this last Tuesday in a bit of a scramble. Kickstarter didn't approve us until about 17 minutes prior to our desired launch time. So we went ahead, got it launched about 15 minutes later than intended, but it's going well as of, filming and talking right now. We're sitting at approximately 94% funded, so close, very close.
What's the certification process for all of the Kickstarter creators that I've talked to throughout the life of this show? I've never really dived into what that approval process is when you're just submitting your project. Like, what was the holdup and what was the thing that finally let it go through?
Yeah, so we're not exactly clear on what the precise holdup was. There's a bit of kerfuffle happening in the community because it wasn't just us. It was a whole bunch of different Kickstarters that all wanted to launch about the same time. And nobody got their projects approved in that standard, 3 to 5 day timeline that Kickstarter says. And so everyone got a little upset, a little nervous, but I think they've sorted it out at this point. Basically, the approval process is just going over what exactly the content they have on the page is and making sure it falls within Kickstarter's usage guidelines.
And how often do you have to edit your stuff? This is your second project that you put on Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
And with your first one or even this one, was there any back and forth where you had to do some edits, make some changes, or kind of repitch the whole thing over to them?
Thus far, we haven't had to entirely repitch a project. Both of ours have gone through first try. More often than not, that's the story that I hear from other creators using Kickstarter. Their guidelines can be a little loose and a little hard to interpret, but pretty much as long as you've got a creative project that you are working on and trying to create and present, you're in the clear.
Well, I think that we should actually talk about that project now. So you are kickstarting Blowback, which is the sequel to Wish You Were Here, which is like a narrative, puzzle, adventure, mystery thing. I have a hard time articulating what exactly these things are, even though I do like them and have talked about them quite a bit in the past. So why don't you kind of give us the spiel on what Wish You Were Here and Blowback are?
I'll start with Wish You Were Here since that one came first. Wish You Were Here is a story, a narrative told entirely in puzzles. And it's not just told in, sheafs of paper, large documents, all in a manila folder, because that doesn't feel very exciting. It is a set of 5 postcards. They're glossy, they're colorful, they're nice in the hand, they feel good weight to them. And all of the information on those cards is those puzzles. Every little detail that you could imagine could potentially be part of a puzzle. And so it's up to you to parse out what's important and relevant and how it all fits together, where it's leading you towards. And as you start solving those puzzles, the narrative itself unfolds via the answers that you reach.
What I found when playing through Wish You Were Here was that it was downright diabolical in that, every little thing I was considering, wait, are these just part of the texture of the postcard itself, or is this communicating some information to me? And sometimes the solution was just beyond the pale, just beyond my grasp. I knew it was there and I couldn't actually get to it. And sometimes that felt incredibly satisfying, and sometimes it felt maddeningly frustrating, and I had to step away, and my wife and I were like, yo, we need some sleep. We need to get up in the morning. We need to go through our day, refresh, reset, and then come back to these things. And then suddenly the puzzles were much better for us to handle at our level of puzzle mastery. But we did have fun, and it was a surprisingly deep and well-constructed narrative that came out of these puzzles. The other thing that I thought was just so unique about this is the lack of hand-holding that you give. It's almost like you delight in the suffering of your fans, that you want there to be this sense of, here's your postcards, figure it out, and trusting in the audience to successfully make it through to the end, which requires quite a bit of grit. And
little bit.
Yeah, I think in that way, you guys have probably carved out a very dedicated fan base that love how hard you make things for them, but still accessible. So, like, how much of that was by design? How much of that was just serendipitous in how the project came together and it just seemed to work? What is your guys' puzzle mastery background?
So we both come from very deep puzzle backgrounds. We've both liked mystery stories and puzzle games since young childhood. We're, slightly different ages, but both of us come from that same background. And both of us actually got into the escape room industry a few years back. And I think that really let us delve deeper into what the puzzle sphere has to offer as a whole, and enabled the ability to conceptualize something that is a little more difficult, that is for a slightly more dedicated puzzle solver, that doesn't hold your hand, that takes that intuitive sense of, oh, I know there's a puzzle there, and draws you in.
Now, I know that your puzzles in Wish You Were Here were inspired by a lot of different historic puzzles, or at least when I started doing some research on what these different puzzles could be, I was finding certain ciphers that have existed in history. It looked like you guys had done an intense amount of research on puzzleology. I don't even know if that's a field of research, but like, is this something that just naturally came through absorbing the escape room medium, or did you guys actually sit down, hit the books, and do a lot of research?
I think that we both have done a ton of different reading on a lot of different kinds of codes and cryptology, steganography, all sorts of fun stuff. And I think that kind of came out of the initial, introduction to the puzzle sphere as an industry, being, escape rooms, and making that very public, but then seeing all of the subscription services that spawned off of that, and the other puzzle games like Journal 29, the Exit and Unlock series. And those are all fun, but they are all very much like an escape room, or completely separate, where it's this really, really heavy narrative with less puzzle. And we wanted something in the middle ground. We make puzzles that we want to play ourselves. So the unfortunate part is we make the puzzles, so we can't play them ourselves. But
I got to imagine that in creating Wish You Were Here, there was a lot left on the cutting room floor. Like, did you find that some puzzles just led to dead ends? Were there any particular puzzles where you're like, oh man, I really want to include this, but I have to let it go? Even if my heart's into it, it just doesn't fit the scheme here, or it's too difficult, or it's too nebulous of a solution. Were there little puzzles like that?
That absolutely happens all the time, or you'll realize that the way you set the puzzle up doesn't provide enough of an indicator, and so you hand it to someone else and they just go down completely the wrong path while trying to solve it. And that's not necessarily what you want to happen, but can be nice from a creative standpoint, just because, it lends itself to new ideas. We definitely end up with plenty of content that we want to play with in greater depth. But like you said, it doesn't fit the theme. It's not quite right, what have you.
Let's talk about what got you here, in the history that led up to this point. So you and your partner Logan, you guys founded Enigma Emporium when? Like a year ago, when you initially started the campaign for Wish You Were Here?
Yeah, just about a year ago is when we went ahead and properly filed all our business paperwork with the state to get ourselves all registered. And we launched all our social media pages just after that. So everything's been live since April of last year, I believe.
Well, how did you two meet?
We met through the escape room industry.
Oh, okay. And so you just had this meeting of minds where you're like, that person has some cool ideas and I want to make stuff with them.
Yeah. And, we get along pretty well, seeing as we started a business together. And I think that we have very complementary skill sets. We both come from strong customer service backgrounds. We like working with people and providing things that make people happy. I think you can't be in customer service for a very long time if you don't have that motivation. And so I think it was only natural that we would seek to work together in greater capacity, doing something that we actually both appreciate and want to do.
So is this like a creative partnership, like a Lennon and McCartney situation where you can kind of see the foundational DNA for each of the lead creators in a separate puzzle? Like, is there something that you tend to do more often in your puzzles, or that Logan tends to do? Or if someone intimately knew each of you, that they could kind of see, oh, that's definitely a Khiara type of thing there?
I have been told that is something that is pretty evident. I've had friends comment on, oh, you made this last week's weekly puzzle, didn't you? I'm like, yeah, I did. How can you tell? And I think it's it's just the difference of our own artistic tastes, our own tastes in what we find clever and interesting in a puzzle, and also just difference of verbiage, how we speak and interact.
What do you find clever and interesting?
All sorts of stuff. I'm personally really, really fond of wordplay, and I like ciphers that make use of either visual mediums or like really intense wordplay, like homophones or interesting synonyms. I really like isograms and how those function and fit together for cipher use.
I feel like I'm going to need a Star Trek sort of breakdown here, where someone gives the real technical speak and then someone else is like, well, that's just like filling a balloon with helium. So break this down for me. What's an example of something that you're really attracted to in a puzzle?
I really like puzzles that are self-contained. I like when I look at the puzzle and the answer is there in front of me. It's just a matter of figuring it out, and where it's not too much work to go ahead and parse out the answer from that point. It's that nice moment of, oh, and just the solve and that pleasure of deriving a solution from what looks like a set of gibberish. So, I'm trying to think of an example. There was a weekly puzzle that we posted recently on our Facebook page, and it's a city skyline. And it's visually appealing, it's interesting, but upon careful examination, you realize that certain lights in the windows of the skyscrapers are lit. And if you go ahead and count through how many windows are lit on each skyscraper and translate that number back into the alphabet, it gives you a word. And it's just that fine attention to detail. The answer's right there. You just have to know to look for it and pay a little bit of attention.
Have you always found yourself naturally gifted at solving puzzles, or was it the actual creativity involved in making the puzzles that attracted you as a child to these things?
I think a little bit of each. I wouldn't say I'm particularly gifted at solving puzzles. I've definitely seen people who are far, far more gifted at solving puzzles and prefer puzzles of far greater intensity than I do myself. But I enjoy seeing how things fit together. Even if a puzzle's too difficult for me to wrap my own brain around, I appreciate seeing how it was constructed in the first place. I think it's really interesting. And I've noticed patterns since I was really young. And I think that is a lot of what puzzles are, is just recognizing patterns in myriad different ways. And I just think that ability to notice patterns has served me very well. And being in the puzzle sphere has definitely helped as well, because, being in that mode of thinking consistently, it becomes easier and easier and easier. But it also starts overlapping into the rest of life.
Totally. Well, because this is inherently a collaborative process between the two of you, and it all has to flow together to fit this narrative, what is your guys' creative system? Like, do you each work on puzzles individually and then just pitch to one another? Do you sit down and say, here's the end result that we need? How do we come to this conclusion via puzzles, and have a brainstorming session over that? What does it look like when you guys are actually working on this stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So thus far, we have actually been carefully parsing out our design so that the initial work is only being done by one or the other of us. So the base work for both Wish You Were Here and Blowback was done by Logan, but then the first round of playtesting before we pass it off to anyone else comes to me. Because then you don't have to try and explain, hey, this is my thing I made. I would like you to playtest it for me. I already know what's going on and kind of what's happening, but I haven't actually solved or played through these yet. And so it's a nice, fresh set of eyes that already know what's happening. And then, we do a nice round of edits, and then we do playtesting. And thus far, we've done playtesting a few different ways. But basically, we give our product to people and say, hey, what do you think? Can you give us some feedback? What puzzles are good? What puzzles are bad? What puzzles were too hard? What did you like? What did you dislike? Etc. And then more editing, more playtesting, more editing, more playtesting, a lot of back and forth, and a lot of back and forth between us as creators during that portion, just to make sure that everything is to both of our likings.
That's really fascinating, because it's got to be so hard to gauge what is the right amount of difficulty and how much you want to frustrate your audience, how much you want them to feel like they had to really overcome an obstacle there, yet still make it satisfying. I guess it should be attainable, but it also should be difficult. And that's a wildly different thing depending on who you're asking and their skill at solving puzzles. So what do you use as your barometer for that? Is it you want to design a puzzle that would be difficult for yourself but attainable, or is it something that you say, I want the average person to be able to sit down with this, or you want the average enthusiast? How do you even come to terms with something like that?
One of the things that we try and do to address that specific issue is having a nice variety of different puzzles. You're going to have some stuff that comes more easily, some stuff that is a great deal more complicated. And, every human being's brain works incredibly differently. Everyone's going to notice different details, different oddities, pick up on different things happening within the information being presented. And so they're really meant to be a team effort. If you try and tackle them alone, it is going to prove leaps and bounds more difficult than if you try and tackle it with, another person or two.
And how much do you feel comfortable with bringing in certain disciplines, I guess, not just puzzles themselves, but in Wish You Were Here, you had references to the periodic table. That was a very important thing in the first one. And some people may have hated chemistry or have forgotten everything there is to know about chemistry. How much do you rely on a general set of knowledge for the audience and make sure that they can still get what they need out of those puzzles?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our puzzles are being designed with the fact that we live in the 21st century in mind. We all have the internet at our fingertips pretty much 24 hours a day. And there's no reason that that shouldn't be brought into play for this sort of game. And so, we aren't going to expect that all of this information offhand. For example, something that you'd almost never see in an escape room that we've used for weekly puzzles before is ISBNs, being the reference code for a book that is internationally standardized. And there's no way that you're going to know that 10-digit number for a specific book off the top of your head. But if you plug it into that fantastic internet-connected device that you have in your pocket, it'll pop right up. So we're expecting people to step a little outside of the comfort zone of their own knowledge and think outside the box and look for that information. So even if you hated chemistry in school, I'm not trying to teach you chemistry. I'm just making use of little bits and pieces, and you can go find those again. I have faith.
And we did, like, both my wife and I, we kind of got the general gist of just about everything in the original Wish You Were Here, and we were able to get to the solutions, but there were some moments where we were like, what is this trying to tell us? And then finally, after an immense amount of research, or that whole, like, taking a day off and coming back to it and finally being like, oh, okay, I now know even what field to start looking into here. That makes a lot more sense. Now let's talk about Blowback, because we've spent a lot of time talking about Wish You Were Here. And what is new about Blowback? Is it essentially you get Wish You Were Here, you understand the concept, then Blowback is more of the same, or is this fundamentally different in some way?
So in many ways, it's very similar. Once again, it's a set of postcards. They're coming from the same individual that sent you the first set of postcards, but the information you're deriving is rather different this time. It's a continuation of the story, but moving in a different direction. Small spoiler. And we took a lot of the feedback that we received about our puzzles for Wish You Were Here and tried to keep that in mind as we worked on Blowback. So it's perhaps also a smidge harder than Wish You Were Here is. We hope not too much. We've gauged in playtesting, not too much, but slightly more difficult.
What was some of the feedback, like specific examples of things that people gave you that they wanted to see in your next thing?
So one thing that startled us a little bit about the first campaign for Wish You Were Here was the amount of international traffic and backers that we received. Because, we're based in the US and all of these puzzles translate to English. Neither of us is necessarily fluent enough to try and do anything in another language entirely. And so it blew us away. Tons of people, and not just other English-speaking countries, but we had folks from Hungary and Norway and Germany, over throughout Asia and Africa, all sorts of different places. And we wanted to lean into that a little bit. And so while Blowback, all of the puzzles will still result in a final answer in English, they do rely on some foreign languages and the usage of translation devices, services, etc. And we hope that, appeals to people. And it's a lot of fun to do. It's really interesting. They look very nice.
I have such immense respect for what you're doing. I don't think that we mentioned it up until this point, but you're creating this multi-night adventure, or I guess it can be a single night for us noobs at puzzling, multi-night adventure that really it's $12, right? For shipping anywhere in the world or anywhere in the US. Like, what's the actual Kickstarter backer goal in order to get one copy of Blowback?
Yeah, Kickstarter is $12 to order just Blowback itself. Our shipping, unfortunately, internationally is going to be a little bit of money. We are subsidizing as best we can, but international shipping does come at a cost. And last time we ended up shipping almost everything via the United States Postal Service, international, domestic, whole thing, just in the envelope that we send the cards in with a stamp on it. And a unfortunately large number were lost, destroyed, in really, really rough shape when they got there. And so now we are going to be shipping everything in bubble mailers because it keeps them much nicer and much safer so that the package that comes to you is not a sad, ripped up mess. But it does make it prohibitively more expensive to ship internationally. So I believe, I'll double check that figure, that it's just a couple dollars.
Well, the point that I'm trying to make is that the production quality in these, they do look like postcards that you're just going to find somewhere. Like this isn't some imitation of postcards. These are real deal cardstock. They have varied artwork and different looks. They look like those random postcards that you'll go into a gas station and be like, oh, not this one, not this one, not this one. They don't look like they're all cut of the same cloth, but the level of information that is squeezed into there, and even in some really, really strange ways that completely blew me away, is fascinating. Now, if I'm being honest as like a game reviewer, you know, I probably have more respect for this than I did direct, like, this is my jam, my thing. I did enjoy it, but there were certain solutions where, in particular, like a translation exercise in the first one for Wish You Were Here, where once we finally found the solution, the cipher, it was like, oh, now we have to translate like 3 paragraphs of text using this cipher. Okay, so we found the solution, and so now it's actually going through everything. That was one little part that for me was like, I want to get back to actually solving the puzzle instead of just implementing the solution that I already know. But more often, it was just there was elusive information just beyond me, and I have such an incredible amount of respect for what you packed into there. And I think that anyone who has any interest in escape rooms or puzzles or just mysteries, like cool little adventures, it is such a no-brainer to say $12. Come on, go check this out. You know, even if you don't solve it, it's still fascinating to sit down and see how far you can get. And that's what makes this so cool and so respectable as a project, is you totally feel like you get your money's worth, even if it is just a couple postcards.
Well, and that's precisely what we aimed for in how we've gone about all our product design from the get-go, is we looked at all of the various other, you know, take-home mystery games, escape room games, whatever you want to call them. And it was either very self-contained, non-immersive ones like Deckscape, Unlock, Exit, where it's just the box with the cards. There might be an accompanying app on the phone that plays you some music, but it's not putting you into the same sort of role. Or it's the really, really very in-depth ones like Dispatch by Breakout or Deadbolt Mystery Society, where you receive the box and it's a large sheaf of papers, and there might be a couple interesting artifacts in there, but it's mostly just loose leaf papers with lots and lots and lots of information. And we wanted something that is concise and that's nice to display. You can leave it out on the coffee table as you're working on it, or, you know, you can put it in a frame. It's small, it's out of the way, whatever feels good to you. But that's nice and good to look at and fun to play with, but just packed with puzzles.
Now, does this feel like your grand achievement that you're working towards, or like you want to continue making these smaller experiences, or was this kind of like the debut as you kind of dip your toes into Kickstarter? You want to continue this adventure, but eventually you do want to get into those larger, more complex experiences with physical components and physical puzzles. Like, is that on the horizon for you guys, or do you anticipate that we're going to see more of these really tight, concise little packages?
For now, we have some more tighter, concise projects planned, but not postcards. We're leaning into some other stuff that's a little smaller, easier to produce, and that we can just jam-pack with puzzles. But we're also looking at some stuff that's dual purpose. Teaser for what is going to be upcoming following Blowback, launching sometime this summer, is going to be Carte Rouge. I am developing a deck of playing cards.
Ooh.
Hand-drawn, all of the art, all of the pips that tell a narrative story, just like Wish You Were Here, just like Blowback, through the art on the face cards and on the card backs, all of it. So it's been a long, exciting time. I'm excited to get that into people's hands in the next few months here for review and play testing. And that'll be coming out on Kickstarter sometime this summer. And then there's a couple other projects planned beyond that. We do have hope for larger, more in-depth ones somewhere down the line. When we first conceptualized of Enigma Emporium at all, that was actually what we first started with, and we have both talked about several times how happy we are that that is not where we decided to jump in just because the logistical difficulties of assembling something that large with those physical components and those loose leaf papers and all of that is just so much more. And having something so concise for the format itself forces you to focus on the puzzles as the product.
Right.
You know, all I've got is 5 postcards. I've got to make those look real nice. I've got to make all my puzzles fit in there. And I think it lends itself really nicely to this format, this kind of game.
To get a little bit more out of you as a person, you know, this is your second Kickstarter here. You're already planning your third at this point. What are the tonal differences in like your own level of nervousness and your pervasive feelings between the first Kickstarter as you were just about to launch it and throughout the campaign versus this Kickstarter? Like, you know, what vibes are different this time?
It's funny you should ask that. So that first one, we were just fantastically nervous. You know, we had both sunk some money into the business for various different things going into that. And, you know, if we didn't make it, we weren't going to make any money back. And that would result in some very serious conversations about what we're doing as a whole. But we did make it quite fantastically. And going into this one, I think we were both feeling a little better prepared, but still quite anxious. You know, we kind of know what we're getting into. You know, we've tested this water at least once. And by all of the metrics we have available to us, this Kickstarter is going just as well, if not better than the first one, but we're both just anxious messes about it. So it's a good time. It's exciting. Kickstarter's fun.
And was there a different strategy that you guys went into this Kickstarter than with Wish You Were Here? Like, did you actually sit down and say, we're going to structure this a little bit different? I mean, you talked about the shipping differences, you talked about the puzzle differences, but as far as actual funding goals and how you were going to structure this, maybe even the time frame for which you had the Kickstarter open, you have a lot more experience as creators at this point, having already manufactured and distributing a thing.
In several different ways. Firstly, we gave ourselves a larger window after the fact during which to get everyone their copies.
Always
because
a good
we
plan.
Absolutely want to make sure that we get them to people, you know, within the promised fulfillment time. But last time we definitely had a quicker flip than we might have liked, and it was a stressful couple of weeks there, but we got them all done. We also are just running a shorter campaign this time around, 21 days instead of 28. We feel like we will, you know, adequately meet our goal. People have plenty enough time to come and pledge if they feel so inclined. And it takes a week off the stress of running a Kickstarter campaign for the creators. Yeah. Our funding goal is quite a bit higher than it was our first time around. Our first time around, we hit our funding goal very, very quickly, and we're just blown away by the amount of support that we received. And so we felt like we were in an okay position to opt for a slightly higher goal. And as said earlier, it seems to be going well thus far, but we'll see. What else is interesting? Oh, stretch goals. Stretch goals are the other really, really big one. When we launched Wish You Were Here, we had no good stretch goals laid out, and that was a terrible mistake. And so this time around, we have stretch goals, and almost all social stretch goals. And if those are met, Copycat Files, an entire other game, will be launched and able to be added on for half price, $7. So...
But that'll be a fully fledged, like just as big of experience, or is it going to be a smaller experience than the two that already, well, I guess one exists and one is just about on the precipice of existing?
It's very, very close. Copycat Files is a fully fledged game. Logan actually just got his final proof printing of that, and I am going to be doing my playtest of that in the next few days here. I'm very excited. And it's same as the other ones, a full set, 5 postcards, just about as many puzzles, but a very different story. While it ties into the initial story, it's separate. Same universe, but all from different people. So each card is very different style, different kinds of puzzles. It's really interesting. It's a little different than the other postcards. I like it.
You know, that's a really good point that I didn't even get to when we were talking about it earlier. But with Wish You Were Here and Blowback being narratively tied together, is Blowback the conclusion of that narrative? Because Wish You Were Here kind of ends on a cliffhanger. You're like, oh, I got to see where this story goes. Do we get the finality, or is this going to lead us into new stories down the road?
It very well might lead into some other stories down the road. It is, of course, a self-contained adventure. It's not going to leave you completely hanging as to what's happening, but there has been some talk of potentially doing some more postcards in that same series down the line. But for now, I do believe that Blowback will wrap itself up nicely enough that no one's left hanging off the edge of that cliff.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to see where it goes. Now, I want to kind of end with a fun question. We talked about the puzzles that you lean into, the things that you really love. Can you talk about a puzzle type that you just don't get? Like, maybe you enjoy them, but you're just like, man, I'm terrible at these. These are the ones where I'm just like, oh, I need to bring someone else into the room.
Oh, God, I might have to ponder on that for a second. I definitely have a hard time with certain, like, word ciphers and letter ciphers. Just, like, raw substitution ciphers are not my forte usually. I need some kind of clue as to what's going on. I don't enjoy doing frequency analysis or anything like that. And I have encountered some puzzles that make use of that sort of thing. I also am loath of process puzzles where you have to translate out more than about a paragraph's worth of text. I was playing the Dispatch series by Breakout. They're a subscription-based puzzle service. You get one each month. And they had a Arnold cipher, so a cipher using a book, except it was the entirety of the Sherlock Holmes canon, the traditional Arthur Conan Doyle ones.
Okay.
And you had to use all of the books in various different fashion. And it was a lot of tabs open on my computer, paging back and forth from different books, and the end result was not as satisfactory as one may have hoped, and I do not appreciate that sort of puzzle.
Well, the last question I have, and this is coming from someone who isn't as experienced or well versed in this world as clearly you are, but I get a similar feel and tone to the artistic craft that's involved in these things as like my own appreciation of music. I'm a big music guy. I'm a musician. I love the history of music. And there are songs where I'll listen to and I'll be like, oh my God, like it's incredible how elegantly woven together this is, how wonderful this is. Like it's almost frightening the amount of skill yet natural ability someone has to just make a magnificent piece of art. Is there like a puzzle or a creator that you look at from history who's either making stuff now or has made stuff in the past, or a specific puzzle itself that you look at and you're like, man, that is a work of art, and I aspire to create things like that?
I am deeply fond of The 11th Hour. It's a book. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Nope.
It is an entire narrative told both in, picture book format, just written out, but also in a mystery told through all of the imagery in the book. And it's gorgeous. It's wonderfully illustrated. It's just fantastic and very clever in how all of the information is hidden throughout, making use of all sorts of different stuff. And I would say that is probably one of my favorite works just overall. It is by Graham Base, Graemebase. I thoroughly recommend everyone check that out, given the opportunity. It's supposed to be a kid's book. That is what people call it, but I actually spent a solid week this last fall going through and parsing out all of the information on each page, and I garnered about 20 pages worth of notes off of this book.
Well, that sounds incredible. And I have a kid, so I know what story I'm picking up next in order to keep him entertained, but also me secretly entertained as I read it over and over and over and over and over again, looking for all the layers. So Graham, a ringing endorsement by Khiara Foss of Enigma Emporium. Khiara, where can people find all kinds of good stuff about Enigma and Blowback and Wish You Were Here? Where should people go to get all this news?
So best bet is going to be our Facebook page, the Enigma Emporium on Facebook. Just look us up and we'll be easy to find. We post most regularly on there. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. Our website is serviceable and has good information, as well as our web store. However, we are live on Kickstarter right now with Blowback, and you can get Wish You Were Here on there for the initial Kickstarter price. So that's where I'd send people for all of their shopping right now.
And hey, $12 entry fee, $24 for the two of them. If any of this piques your interest, that seems like it's a decent price to pay, much cheaper than you and your friends going to a movie, and it's going to give you a lot to ponder and a lot to think back on later on as you're reminiscing over these puzzles that just were like, oh, why do they hate me so much that they put it just beyond that pale? And then finally you get it and you're like, man, that was satisfying. So thank you so much for coming on to the show, Khiara, and thank you everyone for listening to the Cardboard Herald.
Thanks for having me. Have a great evening, everyone.
As always, the Cardboard Herald is a completely free service focused on spotlighting games, gamers, and game creators. You can find all of our podcasts, including the Cardboard Herald and TCbH reviews, on iTunes, Stitcher, and our website. For more recommendations and reviews, you can also head over to our YouTube channel. We do not pay to advertise the show, so please continue spreading the word, following, liking, rating, and doing all the social media things. It truly does help us out a ton. If you'd like to drop us a line and maybe have your listener mail read on air, find us on Twitter @Cardboard Herald, or send us an email to cardboardherald@gmail.com, or click the contact link on our page. Once again, thank you for listening. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald, and you keep on gaming.